I have found that the state of my mental health in motherhood has been directly tied to how well I'm being taken care of. In seasons of motherhood where I've been well supported, my mental health has been much better than in seasons where I felt like I'm burning the fuse at both ends. I've also found in motherhood that life doesn't stop lifing. As a mom who's going through a divorce, I know firsthand how important having a strong foundation of mental health to work from is. And my hope with this episode is to share with you some of the ways that I am caring for my mental health during this season of my life, and hopefully help support you in doing the same no matter what life is throwing your way. Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it. May is Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month, and I first and foremost just want to acknowledge how grateful I am to be alive and parenting in a time when we are able to have these explicit conversations about mental health. The last two episodes of this podcast have been about maternal mental health, bringing awareness to the conversations. And if you haven't already listened to them, I strongly suggest that you do. The first one is with Allie McQuaid. We're talking about the millennial experience and the mental health challenges that so many millennial moms face mothering in our current context. And the second is on anxiety and overthinking with Dr. Kristen Calverley. Both great episodes. Definitely recommend you listen to them if you haven't already. The fact of the matter is there is still stigma surrounding mental health conversations, but we are able to have the conversations, and they are happening more and more frequently. More and more moms are realizing what they can seek help for. And today, I really want to bring that conversation to my own life because I think sometimes it can be helpful to just hear how one individual is taking care of their mental health. I am going through a divorce. I've talked about that here on the podcast. And obviously there's a lot of big transitions that come with that, right? There's the grief of the relationship, there's navigating co-parenting, navigating tricky situations with co-parenting, navigating having kids, going through transitions and dealing with their own things that come along with that, right? So many factors that can just impact me on a day-to-day basis and then overall. And I have found that my strong foundation of mental health care has been crucial in me getting through this time, feeling like I'm being supported and feeling like I can handle it, right? Obviously, there's times where it's hard, but I feel like I am able to get through. So I really want to share with you how I am intentionally caring for my mental health on a regular basis and to just give you a look as to what that looks like in my life. Whether you are going through a big transition in life right now or dealing with grief, navigating complex relationships, or not, you're just mothering and dealing with all the things that come with that. Hopefully this episode will help you reflect on your own life and how you can maybe be doing a little bit more to care for your mental health and set that strong foundation. Now, as I get into the conversation, I do think it's important to acknowledge that prior to my divorce, I have been putting in a lot of work to care for my mental health. One of the biggest things that kind of was a catalyst for that was the diagnosis I had of postpartum anxiety after the birth of my second son in 2021. I started seeing a therapist and I saw my doctor and was prescribed an SSRI, and through the years have, for the most part, been on an SSRI. Finally, about 2 years ago, I found a medication that worked really well for me and didn't have really any negative side effects. It's something that really works for me. It has changed the way I'm able to exist in the world. And I say, hey, if medication makes us able to live our lives and be happy and do the things we need to do as a mom, I'm here for it. So I just want to put that out there. I think laying that foundation is important. But today I'm going to share some of the other things I've been doing to really make sure that my mental health is being cared for. Again, make sure I'm giving myself that strong foundation to start from when things are rough, when the days are hard. At least I am not necessarily spiraling, right? I have that foundation to work from. So first, and I'm going to say most important, I have been making sure that my basic needs are being met. I have been prioritizing, or at least really trying to prioritize getting my basic needs met, sleep being a huge one, also making sure I'm eating nutritious food. Just doing these things that allow me to function from a place of not physical survival mode, where my body physically can't keep going, right? With sleep in particular, I am somebody who, at different times in my life when I've had a lot of anxiety, I have had a hard time sleeping. My mind's just going constantly. I mean, from the time I was a little kid, that was true of me. That really hasn't been as big of a thing the last few years. However, there are nights where I have a really hard time sleeping. I've actually made a deal with myself, and this is just something that like I choose to do. No one ever recommended this to me, but if I have a night that I do not get good sleep, where I'm like up till 3 in the morning, tossing and turning, and just like, I have to get up soon, and it's like that stress, and you can't get to sleep. The next night, I always take a melatonin. It doesn't happen too often, but I just decide that instead of risking getting 2 nights of awful sleep and being in such survival mode that next day, that it's worth it to me just to kind of not even have to deal with that and just get good sleep. Melatonin works for me. Again, it's not something I use a ton, but it's been really helpful to make sure that I'm not like kind of spiraling with lack of sleep to give me that strong foundation to get through my days, right? The second thing on this list that is huge and has been so crucial for me is therapy. I started therapy for the first time in 2021 after the birth of my first son. It was helpful to an extent with what I was dealing with. My therapist wasn't the best fit for me, but it was somebody that was covered by insurance that I had at the time, and it worked. I did not see her for much longer than about a year and had a gap in therapy. Wasn't really something that I was prioritizing. And as soon as my ex partner and I decided to split, I was like, I know that I need to have a therapist in my corner. I need to find a good fit. I was so fortunate to find somebody who has just been an incredible fit in terms of like her skill set and our personalities, right? She challenges me, but is also very validating and supportive. And she knows how to handle the specific things that I'm going through with a divorce and co parenting and just the like special things that come with that situation, right? Therapy has been such a gift during this time. Knowing that every week I have a dedicated space to work through what's going on, to uncover maybe something that's underlying a challenge that I'm having. Honestly, like going to the sessions is really, really important and really helpful. But just the like knowledge that I have that session coming up when something happens, it allows me to not ruminate too much on things, knowing that I will be able to deal with it. I will be able to pull that forward and get it out and talk about it. I am such a huge proponent of therapy for anyone, regardless of whether you're going through a major life transition or not, especially if you're going through a major life transition or dealing with a mental health diagnosis. I think therapy is like a must, but I recommend it to anyone because it really is such a gift to yourself to protect time and space and like a listening ear and somebody to give you feedback to protect that in your schedule. It just feels like such a huge act of care that I prioritize that it's not just the benefit I'm getting from doing it, it's also the benefit I'm getting from knowing that I am caring for myself in that way. And I really don't think I would have been able to maintain a really solid foundation of mental health this last year without that therapy relationship. The next thing that I do to make sure that I'm caring for my mental health is really leaning on my people. When my ex and I decided we were going to go our separate ways, right? We initiated that separation and divorce. I knew that I needed to be putting effort into the connections that I had with people, right? People who really love me and care about me, but maybe we didn't talk all the time, or maybe I just wasn't prioritizing those relationships, those connections in the way that like I'd want to be, but life was doing its thing. I was busy. And so I really leaned into the people who are in my corner, right? I have such a supportive family and they've been incredible, but I have really tapped into friendships with people, again, who love me and I love them and I support them in the things that they do and when they need help and support. And they support me. They will listen. They will be somebody that I text and say, hey, I really need to talk. Can you talk tonight? And they'll call me, right? I have really learned in the last year how people want to help. People want to show up for you. They may not always have the perfect answer, the right thing to say, right? But when we can come together with the people who love us and let them help us, and then also continue showing up for them, right? If they're helping us, they may feel more able to allow us to help them. It's such a beautiful thing, and it really has allowed me to not feel alone during a time that I think could feel incredibly isolating and could just be really hard in that way. And it hasn't been because I have chosen to lean into those relationships, chosen to put effort and time into those relationships. And I have been open to people being there for me and helping me in a way that feels really vulnerable. Another way that I have been caring for my mental health is through coaching. So this is very different than therapy, but something that has felt very important to me is being really intentional with the way I move forward in this life transition. And it's overwhelming. It feels really scary. I get a lot of anxiety thinking about that. Like, whoa, everything is changing. What if I'm doing something wrong in how I'm moving forward, right? Like those thoughts and fears come up. So working with a coach has been really helpful to just know that I am being intentional with what I'm doing. Know that I'm being intentional with decisions I'm making. Again, having somebody to talk to that is there to listen and bounce ideas off of and reflect things back to me has been huge. This is something I started more recently in this period of my life. It's not something I was doing right when the divorce was initiated or anything like that. But now that I have kind of gotten that foundation and really know who I'm connecting with, know who my people are, know the support that I have, I've been able to expand like the effort that I'm giving back to myself with coaching. So that's been really exciting and something that really has strengthened my mental health and my belief in myself, which has been huge. Another way that I have been caring for my mental health during this time is making sure that I have intentional time for myself. And for me, that's intentional time for myself every single day. Some days that is literally just like giving myself 15 minutes to sit on the couch and do nothing, like just let my brain be, let it go. Sometimes that is making sure that I'm having time to read a book, although that hasn't been happening a whole lot recently. Sometimes that is listening to music that I want to listen to. Sometimes that is just making sure that between my work day and picking up the kids, I'm giving myself time to do something that I want to do. Having time to myself, I've found since having my first son is like so crucial. Like I need time to myself every single day to be functioning in any sort of way that doesn't feel like completely run down, burned out. And making sure that I have created that space for myself through my divorce has been so important. And I'm so glad that I had the foundation of doing that prior to this, because obviously the transition of like logistics and things like that has been hard some days to figure out, okay, how do I get time to myself today? But I was at least working from a good foundation. And I have seen that, yep, this is necessary. It is so necessary for me to have that intentional time for myself to feel good in my day to day. Another way that I have been taking care of my mental health is walking every day, going for a walk every day. I'm fortunate to live somewhere where the weather's pretty mild all year long, so this can be something I do outside pretty much most days, right? And pretty much all year. And so I have been really prioritizing getting out, taking my dog for a walk. We do this little loop that's just under a mile. It's easy, it's short, it takes 20 minutes, and then I get on with my day. But it gets me moving my body. It gets me breathing fresh air. It gets me away from my house. I work from home. It's just like so multifaceted, the benefits of it. And it's again one of those things that does really feel good, like I'm caring for myself. And like adopting that mindset of like, I am caring for myself. This is something I'm doing for me to feel good, like adds to that self-worth that contributes so heavily to our mental health. So that's been really cool. I was not somebody who walked every day until about 6 months ago. Like this is something that's fairly new for me and it's become a habit and it's been a really powerful habit in caring for myself. This next thing on the list is something that is very, very, very much a work in progress. But I have been really trying to figure out how to create a joyful space, really making my home feel like my home, somewhere that I want to be, somewhere that feels not so chaotic. I'm a bit of a hot mess. My kids are a disaster. And, dealing with like living in the home that I lived in with their dad, there's a lot of like just weird internal things with that. And so I've been really trying to figure out how to create this space that brings me joy so that when I'm existing in my home, it's allowing me like space to breathe. It's allowing me to feel like I belong. This is a space I've intentionally created, right? Again, this is very much a work in progress. It's something that I'm actually working with my coach on. I've talked to my therapist a lot about it. And yeah, it's something that I recognize like I want to be doing better in. And I really do think that it will have a very positive impact on my mental health when I feel like my space is reflective of the joy and the expression that I want to have in my space. A lot of that is like figuring out how to get it so there's not toys everywhere all the time. So again, work in progress, but it's something that I have found to be really important and something that does impact my mental health quite a bit. The next thing that I do to care for myself, and this is less of an action, although I think when I say it, it might sound like it's an action, but it's practicing gratitude. And I say this carefully because I think that we can so easily slip into this like toxic gratitude that I call it, of kind of diminishing our struggles and our pain by saying, but I'm so grateful to have XYZ. I'm so grateful to have healthy kids. I'm so grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm so grateful to have people who care about me. And all those things are great, but when we're using it to diminish our pain of like, life sucks right now, life is really hard. And it's like, but I'm not allowed to say that because I have all these things. That is so not what I'm talking about here. I am talking about practicing gratitude in the sense of just really like allowing myself to reflect on the things that bring me joy, that make me feel supported, right? Even doing an episode like this and acknowledging the ways that I'm caring for myself and how grateful I am to have people in my corner who are caring for me, to have a therapist that really helps me and supports me through these things, to be grateful for my mental health and for my desire to support myself. Over the last few years, gratitude has just become a natural part of my life. And being able to look at my life without feeling like I need to diminish the pain, without feeling like I need to diminish the struggle, but also with just this immense gratitude for everything that I have and every decision that I've made along the way that's gotten me to this point is huge. It is such a powerful way that I support myself. Just giving myself space to see the things that I'm grateful for is huge. I don't at this time like have a gratitude journal, but I have done that in the past and that can be really helpful. Or having like a practice where, before bed, me and my kids are sharing something. We don't do that these days. Like routines have really been thrown off, but it's just like a thread that in conversations, I always try and say out loud the things I'm grateful for because it reminds me that I do have so much to be grateful for. And then the last thing that I'll share is that I have been trying to socialize as much as possible. Something that I realized pretty early on was that there was a lot of opportunity for me to isolate myself in my life with, having my kids 50% of the time, having more time in the evenings to spend by myself. And I also found that like I can get anxious being alone, which is something that I've worked on and I do that intentional time alone. I've really like practiced and worked on those things. But I've also been really intentional about socializing, getting out with my sister and some friends, or, calling a friend and having a date night virtually, right? Even sometimes it's like socializing with other adults with play dates with our kids, right? Like really being intentional about making those connections, having conversations and not isolating myself. These were not things I was necessarily doing regularly or naturally prior to this huge life transition, but it's been something I've been really intentional about. And I know that doing that has helped me so much and just not getting caught up in my own head, not getting to a place where I am so isolated. I've been able to have so much fun with people. I've been able to strengthen connections with people. And I've been able to kind of circumnavigate days where I might start spiraling if I'm by myself. But if I go, be with people and exist and have fun, it really helps. And then, of course, like I said, it's important to not be running from being alone, not be running from my thoughts and feelings, right? Like there's plenty of time for that too, but socializing and being intentional about that has just been really important to me over the last year. Of course, these are not the only ways that I care for my mental health, but these are just some of the more actionable ways that I do take care of myself and that do help me and have really like been present over the past year while going through a divorce. Again, even if you're not going through a divorce, even if you're not going through a major life transition or, experiencing grief or loss or anything like this, I think any of these things can be ways that you too can prioritize your mental health. It is so important that we are giving ourselves that foundation. So, yes, you may be doing okay, but taking care of mental health is something that doesn't just have to happen when we are in crisis. It doesn't have to just be something that happens when we're dealing with like a mental health struggle. We have mental health, whether it's in good health or bad, right? So intentionally taking care of that is important. I will also just offer the caveat here that if you are dealing with more severe mental health issues, it is so crucial to be connecting with mental health professionals to address that. And like I said, I have done that. I actively work with a therapist now, but have worked with doctors there can be a lot of stigma around that. And I think it's something that we need to do away with. Like, it's okay to struggle. It's okay to seek adequate help and care for that. I am so happy that we are able to have these conversations. I'm so happy that there's a whole month dedicated to bringing awareness to this. I know sometimes it feels like, why do we need to bring awareness to this? But like, the fact of the matter is that things have really been changing a lot in the last 10 years, and there's still a long way to go in terms of having these conversations, normalizing these conversations, making it so that mental health does not feel like some taboo topic that we're talking about. There's a long way to go. And so I am happy to be doing my part in normalizing these conversations, bringing these conversations to you. I'm grateful for you being here and being a part of the conversations because, again, like, that's what's going to bring more awareness and more acceptance to these types of conversations and allow us to really seek help and support in a way that's actually helpful and supportive. I am so grateful for you being here. If you got something out of this episode, if you found it valuable at all, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It means so much to me. It also just helps other moms find the show, know if it's a good fit for them. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you are able to see these episodes come up on your feed week after week. That is it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode. You are worthy, Mama.